the News Channel 5 network, this is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris here with you on a Wednesday. And I invite you to sit back, enjoy the program, and quite possibly, if you'd like, pick up the phone and give us a ring, because we're going to talk, as we do every month, about malpractice law and the idea and the possibility that those of you out there that maybe have an issue with a hospital or a doctor or some type of medical procedure that maybe didn't go right. And the question is, do you possibly have a case? It's a fascinating area of the legal practice out there, malpractice law, and as it evolves. And one of the best malpractice attorneys in the state, Clint Kelly's with us this morning. Good morning to you, sir.
Nick, I would
You're not going to shake my hand, are you?
This is the first time, and I've known you for what now, going on almost 4 years.
At least.
It's the first time I've never shaken your hand. But
let's bump elbows like they do at the NCAA basketball games. It's funny, Clint. I was going to ask you. Yeah. I just got done posting online on my Facebook page about, okay, what are you going to do? I really haven't changed much of what I do with my. I have tickets to the Final Four. If they play, I'm going, dude. Right. I'm going. I'm not avoiding crowds. Now, I wash my hands. I'm going to try to stay away from people that are sick. Try not to touch my face. What about you? I mean, you're a lawyer, a medical malpractice lawyer, so you know an awful lot about medicine too. How are you handling it?
You know, my wife and I, we talked about this a lot, and basically the only change in our routine is we're just going to wash our hands a whole lot more. We are going to travel to Kiawah Island in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Where is that?
Kiawah Island, it's outside Charleston.
Okay, Charleston. Okay, it's one of those. So you're flying there?
Yeah, we're flying there.
Okay.
And so we're probably going to wear those gloves. My wife's got a few pair of them that you can put on. And we'll probably wear those into the airport, onto the plane, and then to the hotel.
Will you wear a mask?
No, I'm not doing that.
See, you know better, right?
Because, there's an old saying here, you could kiss your brother, but don't shake hands with him.
Yeah.
It's the contact with your hands that's really the main contagion. Heard. So I think if you protect your hands, that's good enough. But I'm like you, I don't want to stay away from events that I can go to as long as I take necessary precautions. I don't want to let it beat me down, but we all have to be smart and really pay attention to keeping these clean as much as possible.
That's exactly it. Don't panic. And some people blame the media, saying you're panicking. No, I think the media has been fair on this and rational. We listen to the health professionals. People stockpiling toilet paper and Purell. Come on. And that's happened. There was a run on toilet paper because they're worried they're going to be quarantined and they're going to run out of toilet. If I'm going to be quarantined, toilet paper is not high on my list of things I'm worried about I'm going to run out of, because, there's other things you can use for toilet paper if you really have to. But things like food and stuff like that, maybe I'll stock up on that. But it's crazy the way people react. What do you think? Do you think, Clint, again, because I know your background, it's still going to, I think the United States is going to find a way to deal with this, as the rest of the world will as well. But I think it's still going to get a little more intense in the days and weeks to come. We're going to see more people testing positive.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got two things going on at the same time. First of all, we don't have enough tests. I could spend a whole show on my thoughts on that. But the second part of this is the underdiagnosis. Because we don't have enough tests and because we are late to the game, there are exponentially more people who have this that we don't know about. And so you just heard about Michigan. The numbers are starting small and they're going to grow. This, we call it exponential increase. It's a giant slope of cases. There are thousands and thousands of people. There may be 1,000 people who have the infection here in Tennessee. We just don't know because they haven't been tested.
Oh, there are. What are we saying now in the state of Tennessee? 7 confirmed cases. If you think that's the only number of cases, but part of the reason is, okay, so you could say on the bad side, all right, there's more cases than we realize. On the good side, I think it's because the symptoms for a great many people, unless you're elderly or immune compromised, are not all that. You may have it and you could shake this flu in a day or two, just like you would any other flu. Yeah, that's my take. I don't think I don't worry. What if I get the coronavirus? Just like anything else, I don't want the dang flu, but I don't think it's going to kill me, and it's not going to kill you either.
No, that's the one thing we all need to be so thankful for. What if the mortality rate was like 10%?
What if this was Ebola?
Or 25%? Yeah. Then we would all be frantic. And listen, I think that's if there's one positive to come out of this whole experience here. We learn how to deal with this so that if one comes out that is a 5, 10, or 15% mortality rate, we know how to deal with it. So 100 million people don't die. I'm hoping that's what we learn from this process.
No, I couldn't agree. That's an excellent point because the bottom line is we'll get past this. the day is coming where there's going to be exactly what you described. I don't want to scare people, but I've always said the biggest threat to humanity is not nuclear war, terrorists and all that. The biggest threat to humanity is going to be some type of killer bug that goes along this way, and it's hard to shut down.
Geneticists and infectious disease specialists have been predicting. They've been writing books about this for decades.
Remember the movie The Hot Zone and the book The Hot Zone?
Andromeda strain, all those. It's going to happen because some of these viruses are going to be capable of mutating so quickly and will be so toxic that eventually this is going to happen. But let's hope we learn from this experience and we can deal with it, so when the real bad thing does happen, we can contain it. Because I tell you, we're learning from here, if you're not prepared, and we weren't, the consequences can be devastating.
Totally agree. Yeah. All right, let's shift gears again. We're going to get the phone number up there, but we're going to remind folks, malpractice, and I know you always bring some stories. I've got a few things to ask you about as well. But again, malpractice attorneys, let's just go over this again. If someone's sitting there wondering, how do you know whether or not you have a case?
Yeah, it's a major medical mistake that produces a major medical injury. A lot of times the people know it's happened. You know, if you have a sudden injury after a surgical procedure, or you are misdiagnosed and you start getting real sick. A case we're going to discuss here today is a man who went in to have surgery on his around his aorta, which is the main vessel behind the heart. He had an aortic dissection, and there was supposed to be a graft or stent put in to block off that dissection. Dissection is just a tear, Nick.
Okay.
And these things can develop in some patients, and it can cause severe bleeding, and ultimately could cause death unless it's treated appropriately. This man had surgery, but the problem was he wasn't told that there was a risk of paralysis associated with the surgery, and the doctor didn't take appropriate steps to reduce the risk of paralysis, and wound up putting this nice man in a wheelchair. And he's in his mid-50s, and his life and his wife have both been changed forever. That's the kind of case, you know you got it when it happens. When you wake up 5 days after surgery and you can't walk, and you begin to learn what caused your paralysis, then you think to yourself, because he knows he's never going to work again like he used to.
Boy.
He's going to have to make changes to his lifestyle. He's going to have someone take care of his bowel and his bladder, move him from place to place. Major medical expenses the rest of his life. When that happens, you know, I've got to get a lawyer. I've got to get some compensation to live. I mean, because if you don't have the money, and in many cases the insurance policies are not very good for some of these people, if you don't have a high quality of care, that's going to reduce your life expectancy. And if you're going to live in a wheelchair, at least live well. You know?
How egregious is it when a doctor does not tell you the risks involved with the procedure? Because what you just described, the second part where obviously they messed up the surgery somehow, that's to me the most serious part of it. But how much of a responsibility does a doctor, if you don't ask, have to tell you what the risks are about a procedure?
Ultimate responsibility.
Are they supposed to tell you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You being the patient, are supposed to be told, you have the right to be told, the major material risks of every surgical procedure. That is an obligation on the part of the doctor to provide that information so you can give informed consent.
Okay.
Consent that's not informed is no consent at all. So in order for the doctor to get permission to operate on you, he has to tell you, or she has to tell you, what the major risks are so you can make a decision for yourself, an informed decision. Do I want this? Because some patients don't.
Now, almost every procedure, if it's surgical, involves some level of risk. Some like this one, maybe 80% risk that it could be. Others are minuscule, but still the doctor's supposed to tell you. Like, for instance, you're having your tonsils out. What's the risk of that? Should the doctor still say, well, in some cases with tonsils, you could get an infection. It could be a problem. I don't know.
Sure. I mean, you're
small a chance.
Sure. You talk about the major ones, the ones that are most frequent, like anesthesia. I don't know if you've had surgery recently, Nick, but an anesthesiologist will sit down with you face to face. I've had it happen to me. And they will go through all the risks one after another. And it's written there in boilerplate, right there in front of your face. You can't miss it. And it's just about everything. But we all know with anesthesia, I mean, it's like 1 in 100,000, 1 in a million. But if you've got a procedure where the risks of becoming paralyzed are 1 in 20, okay?
Some are incredibly risky.
That's like one person in your classroom, okay?
So you're saying that's enough that maybe someone would say, I know I've got this condition, but it's not worth the risk.
Correct. Or there may be an alternative to the procedure that can reduce that risk that I as a patient want to know about. I may want to opt to have the alternative because it would lower the risk of paralysis. Again, patients deserve to make an informed choice. We all have that right. And if that choice is not provided to us because the doctor withholds information, that is a violation of the civil law. That's called a lack of informed consent. And in those cases, you can have a medical malpractice case over that. And I've got one right now.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk some more about that. The number's going to be on the screen. I want to remind people as we go to the break, if you're wondering, should I call now or I'll just put it off? You want to say it right off the top. There's statute of limitations on cases.
1 year from the date that you discover your injury. You shouldn't wait a year. You shouldn't wait more than a day. If you think that you have been injured by a medical mistake, pick up the phone and call a lawyer. Call me or call another board-certified medical malpractice lawyer. The call costs nothing. It is confidential, and you need to know what your rights are, because the worst thing that can happen to you is you wait too long and then you find out you can't even get your lawsuit filed because you're time barred.
Something to think about. 737-7587 is the number. If you'd like to join in the conversation, give us a holler. We'll be back with more with malpractice attorney Clint Kelly right after this.